All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real Music Observer. My name is Dave, observing real music in real time for real people, just like you and just like me. Whatever happened to the Tubes? Remember the Tubes? She's a Beauty. Talk to You Later. I mean, those are their two big hits, but they had other great songs. The Tubes started out as this real weird novelty band in the 1970s, and they built a cult following by singing songs like What Do You Want From Life and White Punks on Dope. I remember buying like this Best of the Tubes cassette, which was the earlier material on A&M Records, and their live show was kind of like the Rocky Horror Picture Show a little bit, and mixed with maybe some softcore, you know what I'm saying? So that was their shtick. They attracted a very oddball group of folks to their shows. The music was almost secondary to their performance. I used to hang out with a band in Boston called The Fools, and they had the same sort of way of doing things, we'll put it that way. Maybe not quite as risque, but pretty close. And the Tubes, though, hit a wall with their record label, late 70s, and A&M said, sorry, you guys aren't writing any hit songs, we need some hit songs, you're not selling any albums, and so bye-bye. The band was fortunate enough to get a deal with Capitol Records, but there were some, contingencies. There were some things the band had to change, like they had to start writing real songs, and they had to start creating music that could possibly get on the radio. Out of the box, they were able to make it on the radio with a tune called Talk to You Later. Now, another big difference is they hired David Foster to produce them. This was a very weird marriage between Foster and the Tubes. Foster, of course, the guy who is more like Earth, Wind, and Fire and Airplay, if you know who they are. Foster was a guy who, of course, saved Chicago and gave them a second life, and was producing a lot of music that had a certain sound to it. The Tubes were actually harder to fit in the tube, if you know what I mean. Foster, I think, allowed the Tubes a little bit more artistic freedom while controlling what they sounded like and making their music way more accessible than it was prior to their first album on Capitol. The Completion Backwards Principle was the name of the album, and the famous part of the album is the very beginning, where there's like this introduction, sounds like some guy from the 1960s telling you how you can play a record. I remember that distinctly. I used to listen to that all the time. The Tubes got some success. They had Talk to You Later, Don't Want to Wait Anymore, which was a power ballad, and just crazy that they would even have a power ballad. But this is the reformation that Foster and Fee Waybill, the lead singer, really were after. Tubes came out with another album called Outside Inside, or Inside Outside, I can't remember which comes first, and they had their biggest hit. It's called She's a Beauty. They also had some real interesting and funky moments, a tune called Tip of My Tongue, which also got some airplay, which sounds a bit like Earth, Wind, and Fire, really kind of changing this band, but also moving them forward, because She's a Beauty was a monster hit. There were some other tunes on that album that got some moderate airplay. I think one where Fee Waybill sings with Martha Davis from the Motels. So they were right there. Now, what happened next, though, was why the Tubes don't do big arena concerts. And you can see Fee Waybill talking about this here and there online. It's just a tragic thing. The band at this point had a schism, over who should produce their next album. Fee Waybill was insisting on David Foster. The rest of the band wanted someone else. Eventually, that split the band up, but before it did, they came out with one more album called Love Bomb. ironically titled because the album was a complete bomb, produced by Todd Rundgren, who you would think would be Bank, like he would be Money in the Bank. He's a great producer. But Rundgren really messed with their sound and almost changed it to like an early 80s, late 70s kind of sound. And that's where Rundgren, I think, was most comfortable musically speaking. He added this weird sound to this lead single, which was called Piece by Piece, which is a great song. But the production on it is actually distracting. It almost sounds like there's a squeaky wheel or something that Rundgren has used to create some sort of an effect, and it ruins the song. And needless to say, I think Piece by Piece probably stalled in the top 50 that year. I think it was 85 or 86, and that was it. No more Tubes, done. The band broke up. Now, Fee Waybill had recorded a solo album waiting for the band to figure out what they were going to do for Love Bomb. And Waybill recorded his album with David Foster. And the album is fantastic. And if that were a Tubes album, it probably would have done so much better. The fact that you didn't, you had this guy, who's Fee Waybill? Nobody knew. It sounded like a fake name, which it is, by the way. But it's just weird that there is no, conclusion to the Tubes at this point. There's this great solo album. By the way, one of the tracks called Save My Life actually got onto the St. Elmo's Fire soundtrack. And if you listen to that it seems like an extension of like She's a Beauty. It has that same type of sound. Foster really had a great sound for that record. The bottom line is, though, the Tubes broke up after that, and yeah, they've gotten together since, and they do touring and so forth. I don't know if they're still out there. They've been out there from time to time playing a few of their vintage songs along with the few hits that they had. But if they had kept David Foster, they would have been as big as like Foreigner and REO Speedwagon and all of those bands that have a much more robust touring life these days. Fee Waybill just regretting that he didn't put his foot down more, or the band couldn't agree to work with David Foster again, because I think they would have done so much more and, had a lot more of a catalog to work off of in the, in the years to come. So there you go, the Tubes. What happened to the Tubes? Well, you just found out. So see you soon.